Welcome to the Rake. We have a very exciting guest today. We've been meaning to get him on for a while. Daniel Dvoress, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we're very excited to chat. A lot of things to talk about. But first, just give us a little bit of like a backstory of who you are and how you got into poker.
So I got into poker last year of high school, and it was just kind of like I played literally in the cafeteria for lunch money. Like that was like the thing to do. I went to a high school with a bunch of rich kids, so that was it was kind of good to try to take their money. I was kind of, I guess, an outsider there because I was like in the French program and not from there.
Oh, where you grew up?
Well, like originally I grew up in Russia, but my family moved here when I was 8. So I kind of bounced around Toronto for most of my young adult life. So yeah, started playing last year of high school, and then my parents made me go to university, which I didn't want to do. University costs money, so I ended up continuing to play poker to pay off university, and then it just like kind of progressed into I was playing more, going to school with less enthusiasm, and eventually went full time.
Crazy. And what did you go to school for?
I went to school for math and psych.
Makes sense. Makes a lot.
Yeah, it fits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, originally I was going to do like forensic psychology, and then because that seemed interesting to me, and then it just, I had several issues with that whole career path, in part because it just didn't seem like a legitimate career path, in part because I guess I was kind of disheartened with the whole psychology thing in general, and
yeah.
Those classes were the most fun though. I was a psych and English major in college, and I just remember psychology classes, I'd be all excited to go to them, and then English classes, I'm like, ugh. Like psych, you actually got to learn some stuff. Like I learned some really manipulative tactics in social psychology, where they're like, if you want someone to like you, instead of doing them a favor, they say, ask them for a favor. And then the person, as they're doing the favor for you, they rationalize, oh, well, I wouldn't do this for someone I don't like, so I must like her.
Yeah, because it's this like cognitive dissonance of like, well, I'm not going to let this guy borrow my pen if I don't like him.
Right.
So like he must be my friend, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I found it really depends what professor you get to with fields like that. Like there's like I had a couple of brilliant ones and I loved the classes, and then a couple not so brilliant ones, and I was just like, why am I here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're playing poker, you're playing online, I'm really interested in the moment you decided that you're going to take it to the next level and start playing these big tournaments and the most prestigious events and stuff.
I think it was kind of a natural progression when I first started moving up the stakes in poker. Originally, I was a cash game player. I played some sit and goes as well, and kind of bounced around different formats. But it was never my goal to like get to the top or play the biggest games or play the most prestigious events. Like that was not anything I ever considered. And then gradually, well, I guess a few things happened. First, when I started coaching, I think poker became like a more academic thing for me, if you will. So at some point, as you're moving up the stakes, like you kind of have to make a decision of, am I going to try to progress into like the toughest games that run, or am I going to try to become a politician and like get into like these sweet games, which aren't that tough, but like for the same stakes are often higher. And for me, it was like part of it was just like the academic appeal. It was very appealing to kind of play in the toughest fields. In part, I think it's just like with my personality, that kind of just works better, where I'm just very competitive. I don't think I would make I just don't think of myself as someone that can like, I don't want to use the word like manipulate their way into games, but I'm just like not the social butterfly that's going to get into like the sick private game, So you kind of make that decision. So part of it was kind of just trying to kind of seeking the competition, seeking the highest stakes. And then also my circle of peers would, like gradually people were just like, hey, you should play these tournaments. And then I was like, hey, I guess I should.
It's funny because I feel like it's so true. Like there comes a point when you're playing, you kind of have to go down one or two paths of like cultivating that kind of like wild fish image and getting into these private games, or going down the path of like, you know, because reputation is kind of like so important that like, you know, once you go, like you kind of have to maybe diverge. I don't want to say diverge, but like there is kind of this like point maybe where you make that decision. And
for sure.
There's just these two big worlds of poker that kind of, they both exist and they're both great, I think. But, you know, I think mostly like you have to commit to one or the other. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that for sure. And also, I think most of this stuff happens, like, yes, it's a decision, but also it's just an organic process of like, just kind of little ways you, like little decisions you make in the day-to-day life, who you socialize with. So it's just something I think that happens organically with certain personality types and not others. I think one approach isn't better than the other. I just can't really picture myself taking the other one. But also, had I taken the other one, or had I had a different personality, or had things aligned differently, I'm sure I would be, or I could potentially be saying the same thing. I just feel like, yeah, why are these idiots playing for like high stakes against like really tough players all the time when they could just like become friends with like a few people that want to play for even higher stakes and way softer games?
Yeah, that's tough though. I think it's cool to be able to play high stakes cash. I feel like back in the day, you didn't have to do the politician thing and like schmooze with people to get a seat. Evidenced by the fact that Phil Galfond was getting on high stakes poker despite being a huge winning player. They're just like, oh, he's a cool dude, whatever. And he doesn't even have to be flashy or do like the Helmuth blow ups or anything. I think it used to be like that. And then I think now it's like more, if you're willing to be the person who's like, all right, I'm going to like text a whale to show up with me. That's my admission ticket into this game. I can't picture you being, I don't know you that well, but it doesn't seem like you're the person who's going to want to do that.
Yeah, it's just, for sure. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me for various reasons. But yeah, certainly there's been people that haven't tried to hide the fact that they're excellent poker players, and yet they're just great people, and yeah, they get to play sweet games, but also it's just like, how many Phil Galfonds are there, you know? Like,
yeah. And then also, I mean, I think some people do earn their entry into those games without being fake. You know, there are people who are just like Jean Robert is just a ridiculous human being and people want to play poker with him. And I think that he could become a really good player and people will still want to play poker with him because they just think it's funny. Like he does the whole, like, I'm broke, I'm on social media talking about how I can't do anything, but I'm also on a yacht. Like he's a ridiculous person. I think that if that was like the personality that you organically have, then I feel like maybe you would want to do the cash game thing. I did want to ask you something though, because this is awesome that you hadn't had a tournament win. A live tournament win, and then you won the 2019 Super High Roller Bowl Bahamas, and then the next tournament as well.
Yeah, that was something. It was especially funny because I went for, I guess I had been seriously playing like these small field events for, I want to say like a few years, and I just like happened to never win one of them. I think I came second a bunch of times. And then I like kind of won one, but not really, where it was this like 25K that wasn't even on the schedule in the Bahamas. Like, I don't remember what year it was, but it got 6 entrants. And, and like we dealt 3-handed because I'm pretty sure it was like there was like some sports game on and Sam Greenwood was one of the players. And I think Tim Adams was like the other player. And we're just like, let's just do an ICM chop and like go to our room and we have a tournament to play tomorrow. And I think Sam Greenwood wanted to watch basketball or something. And so I happened to be the chip leader at that time and we just chopped it up. So that was like my one win.
Yeah, when you haven't had a win, I would totally count that as well. You're just like I did it. I broke the ice.
That kind of seems like to be a like trend when you win one event. A lot of people go on to win a lot they kind of come in clumps. Do you believe that something to that, like maybe confidence or anything? Or is it just random?
I mean, I think there's a little bit to it, sure. But I also think, like, I think, so we're talking about events that have like 50 to 60 players in these. So,
yeah.
And like they tend to be pretty tough fields. So, but like, let's say I have a significant edge on the field, and instead of like the average person is like 1 in 50 to win, let's say I'm like 1 in 40 to win. And yeah, maybe if I'm running good and like feeling super confident and playing super well, instead of 1 in 40, I'm like 1 in 38 to win. Okay. But it's still like, it's still mostly random. But yeah, I think everyone would say that when they're running well, unless they're potentially running too well, where you can kind of have the opposite effect, people do tend to make better decisions when they're not under stress, when they're running well. But the whole clumping of results thing, mostly that's just going to be due to randomness for sure.
That is too reasonable of a response. If it was 15 years ago and you're getting interviewed on like when millions of people would watch, they'd be like, Daniel, do you think there's something to the fact that you won 2 in a row? And you'd be like, yes, I figured it out by my course. There's a master class by Dvoress.
Yeah, I think I'm just a shitty salesperson. I should capitalize on that.
For sure. So I know Marley wanted to ask all the poker stuff. I wanted to just spend like 30 minutes talking about your survival training.
Okay, cool.
That's what I'm interested in. I don't know if that's what our audience is interested in, but you know what? Screw them. How did you get into this? Like, what was your first time when you just like went out on a lake and fished for yourself and made your own meal? Like, what made you realize you loved it and that this is something that like, I don't know, that kind of like quiets your mind?
So it's just something I started doing really early on. Like, I think the first time I went fishing, I was like 5 or 6 or something. I somewhat vividly remember going on like hiking trips and like canoeing trips, also like roughly that same age, maybe even a little bit younger. So it's just something I grew up doing. I haven't really been a meditator until recently, but I think I naturally just realized that being outdoors, kind of not being surrounded by anyone, kind of, I guess, like doing your own thing for a few days, not having any electronics, kind of eating the food you catch, all of that tends to be very, very meditative. So I think it was, I think there was like that side to it that as I became a young adult, part of why I wanted to stick with it. It's also just, I don't know, it just puts your mind at peace. And I also think maybe there's like some deeper things in terms of like when I was growing up in Russia and when I was like still a little kid, I think for people in the city, like getting good food might have been a little bit of an issue in the very early 90s. I think there were times where like supermarkets would just like generally be empty. But my parents knew like a few farmers, and I like remember just like really valuing kind of having a life outside of the city, and when shit hits the fan, having the ability to be resourceful. So I think that's just like a deep value that's been ingrained in me that I kind of keep to this day.
Do you think that it has helped you at all during this coronavirus pandemic? Just, I know there are a lot of people who are preppers, which is a little different, but they had, the tools to survive if shit really hit the fan and things got awful. Like just knowing that you have a little bit more survival skill than most. Do you think that helped you at all?
I think it helps mentally for sure. In terms of how it helps from a practical standpoint, it's funny because when this lockdown started, I actually got a couple of text messages from friends being like, hey, I would like imagine you're just super prepared for this, like and I'm just like, well, yeah, like, my parents have like 2 chest freezers full of meat sort of thing, and like I'm not gonna starve to death. But also for me just mentally, like when everything kind of happened and there was like this full lockdown, I was just like, yeah, okay, cool. Like it's really not that big of a deal. like, yeah, you can't go see your favorite movie and you might have to stay inside for a while, but it's like, you're also not going to starve to death. And I think a lot of, like, sure, having that backbone of resourcefulness helps with the mental aspect. So yeah, I guess it helps a little bit, but also a little overvalued.
So what kind of stuff do you hunt? I heard that you like hunt bears and stuff.
What? Really?
Mostly it tends to be birds and deer here.
Okay. Where are you now?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, you're Toronto. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're near like a bunch of wildlife and stuff, so.
Yeah, like there's not, once you get outside of Toronto, there's really not much around. Like if you just go north, once you drive an hour outside of Toronto, like there's not really a city with more than like 100,000 people in it, or I guess a town with more than 100,000 people in it. So there's a lot of, there's definitely a lot of wilderness in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at your Instagram. You have a sweet Instagram. There's a very high, cool pictures to like boring picture ratio on yours. I don't know how Instagram works. Mine sucks. I'm like, here's poker chips and a dog. I don't know, but yours are all like trips, like hiking and biking and stuff like that. What is your favorite trip that you've gone on that has nothing to do with poker, and what'd you do there?
Ooh, I would say, so last year my girlfriend and I went to Switzerland, and we did, I'd say like 80% of the trip was just hiking. So we were just kind of up in the mountains, just exploring. That was definitely one of my favorite trips that I've done with someone else. For myself personally, I don't think anything really stands out, but like my goal is when I take a day trip, which I aim for once a week. It doesn't really happen, but I really do try to get out of the city at least once a week or so. For me, it doesn't have to be anything glorious. The goal is to just like be somewhere where I don't see or hear another human being for the entire day. And if I can accomplish that, like if I can just canoe somewhere really far away, not another soul in sight, then I'm happy.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that was a big thing. I used to be really into distance running, and I was trying to explain it to my friend, and I'm like, no, I never meditated. I didn't do yoga, but I swear that was the exact same thing. When your body just gets so tired that you can't think of any problems, you're just kind of worrying about like, man, I'm really sweaty. I'm pretty exhausted.
Right.
Oh, cool. This view is really nice. And you just can't worry about stuff. I have trouble like sitting down and clearing my mind in the way that other people talk about meditation, but I feel like when I'm tired enough, it just like naturally happens.
Yeah, that's a huge thing for me for sure, because you just become, yeah, for me when I'm like exhausted, when I'm hiking somewhere with a heavy backpack or canoeing or whatever, you get into this state where you are just observing yourself, where you're just like, I'm getting a blister. Cool. Like, long way to go. That's going to hurt for the entire day. All right. Or, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes today. Okay, then. And it's this thing where you're just observing, kind of doing mental note taking, but not reacting to anything. And that's in large part what meditation is. And I'm totally the same way. I do meditate, but it's very hard for me to, like, when people just like sit down and meditate for 20 minutes, I do it sometimes, but it's just so hard. And I know the point of it is that it's supposed to be hard, but it's just such a different experience where I can be in sort of that mental trance for like 6 hours in a row, as long as I'm outside.
Have you and your girlfriend taken any like normal people vacations, or like do you ever just go somewhere where you're like, oh, I want to go to the beach and go to the spa and drink too much and eat too much, and that's the trip? Or are you guys just super compatible with that you're like, you want to go on these difficult trips and like get a lot of exercise and see stuff?
I think we're compatible in the sense that like neither of us want a vacation where we just like do nothing. Like the whole like just like sitting on the beach drinking, I could do that for like a day, and then I need to do something. I think she would prefer doing something that's more, I guess, like culturally enriching, or like in a city. like either after or before the Switzerland thing, we also did a thing where like we just went to Paris and had like a normal people vacation, but we were still like doing stuff. I don't think either of us can do a thing where we're just like doing nothing. Like I don't find that relaxing. I just get antsy and feel like I'm wasting time. So yeah, that just wouldn't be enjoyable. But yeah, I think that for her, like my ideal vacation would just be to like go to a cabin or like just sleep in a tent for like a week and not see anyone. And that is definitely not her version of an ideal vacation. So in that sense, we have different ideas. But in terms of intensity, I don't think we do.
Gotcha. And one other thing, when you say not see anyone, she doesn't count, right? Like, is this?
Yeah, she doesn't. It's like people outside of your immediate, Yeah,
that's how I feel too. I'm like, I don't need alone time. I need time away from others outside of my little, like me and my boyfriend. I'm like, he doesn't count. He doesn't take energy away from me to like interact with him.
Right. That's the thing.
Completely myself. And,
yeah. It's just people that are not part of the group that you're doing the activity with.
Yeah.
Right. So Raj talking about Run It Once, of course, been making videos for them forever. How did that come to be, and why did you decide to get into coaching?
So with that, what happened was Ben Sulsky messaged me. I think at that point I didn't know him that well, but I think he had been buying some of my action in some cash games. This would have been 2011, I think, maybe 2012. And he just messaged me and he was like, hey, like Run It Once is looking for new coaches. Would you be interested? And so it was just like, at that point I had done no coaching, or maybe I did a little bit of coaching with friends, but definitely nothing public facing. And also doing anything where I speak to the public was just like mortifying to me at the time. So in large part, I was like, well, I don't know if this is like even a plus EV thing for me in terms of like poker in a vacuum, but I have to do it just like for that reason, at least to sort of like, I guess like face my fears or whatever. So in large part, I decided to start coaching as a challenge to myself. And then obviously over time that just developed into me genuinely really liking it. And also it just provides a nice balance in terms of doing something with poker where you are helping other people. Like I think we all know that poker is just tends to be an industry where there's, the whole point is to take money from others and not necessarily help them. So coaching is a nice way to balance that out.
Could you talk a little more about what was your fear based in when you were saying you're afraid of like speaking to a group or speaking in public? Do you know what the root of that was?
I think it's just like something I had, like I remember even like in school, I was like good at stuff, especially math, but I'd just be like mortified of like explaining something to the class. And then with this, I was just like, all right, I just like got to do it. And I don't even have to like face people in real life. Like this is like a good step to I guess, become more like, I guess just less anxious in social situations, really.
Yeah. Cause you could make the video. And if you're like, if you said, yes, awesome, I'm going to help do this. And then you make a video and you're like, listen, I'm trash. This is the worst thing ever. I'm the worst coach ever. You could just bow out. It's not like it's live.
Right.
You
Exactly.
Can say, okay, it's not for me. And do you think that is part of what makes it really satisfying for you though, is that you got over something that you were afraid of and now you're good at it?
I think part of it, but I think in larger part, it's really, I think in larger part, it's just like the feedback that you get from people, especially when there's these like genuine moments where you make something click for someone. And I've had that myself, like with, like where I've been like the one where someone way better than me at something, it doesn't even have to be like poker related, but has explained something to me. And like you have this like aha moment. And I've just felt like this immense amount of gratitude towards that person, and being on the receiving end of that, and also being able to generate that feeling for someone else is, I think that's just a really big thing.
Hello, friends. It's time for an exciting message from our sponsors at Run It Once. If you're not already playing on Run It Once Poker, there's no better time to start than right this moment, so that you can take advantage of our newest promo, Bankroll Builder, an exclusive offer for first-time depositors. If you make your first ever deposit on Run It Once Poker at any point from now until June 30th, we'll toss a free €10 into your account. Plus, we'll double our usual 100% first deposit bonus of up to €600, and you'll get up to 2 months of free access to all essential tier content on Run It Once Training, the biggest and baddest poker training site on the web. For full details, head to once.run/BB and start building that bankroll. And as if that's not enough reason to join Run It Once Poker, from now until June 28th, we're also running a weekly leaderboard program where you can battle it out for over €10,000 in prizes. Every week, we'll feature 3 no-limit Hold'em leaderboards and 4 pot limit Omaha leaderboards broken down by specific stakes, with the top 5 places on each board receiving a cash prize at the end of the week. Jump over to once.run/LB for full details. And now, back to the pod.
Talked a little bit about how like poker just has like no kind of like, not like a ton of like giving back. I know a lot of people like genuinely struggle with that. Do you struggle with that like in general, or is it kind of?
I think I would struggle with it if I was playing in a different environment. So for example, once a year, there's this poker tournament like an hour outside of Toronto in Niagara, and it's this like 5K, but it's a really big 5K, and for I guess for Canada and where it is in Canada, it's like a huge deal, and everyone comes out, and there's a relatively big cash game that runs like the week that tournament runs, and it's a really good cash game, and I play it. Obviously, it's just a great spot, but you just feel so mentally drained in that sort of environment, because the people that you tend to be winning from, or even if you're not winning, the people that you see losing, a lot of the time you could tell like they're maybe like they shouldn't even be like losing that money, and also they're just like not really necessarily happy playing. So I think if I was doing that 365 days a year and that was my full-time job, I think that would be a lot of weight on me. But with sort of the niche that I found with the high roller tournaments, it just doesn't tend to be like that at all. There's no, I think generally the people that are playing the high rollers recreationally, like they don't think that they're like huge winners in the fields or anything. They just want the challenge of playing with really good players, and they don't really care about taking like a 10, 20K hit of EV. So that part of it is nice. There's also just not this, it's just like a less predatory environment. So the niche that I happen to be in, there's not a lot of that worry. But I think that, I think if I was playing like live cash, for example, my answer would be very different.
Something I struggle with a lot, and I've thought about it too, especially at Triton and stuff. Like, it's the best vibe, I feel like, there, because for the same reasons you said, that like the recreational people are just having so much fun. The like pros are just like in good spirits because they're rolled for it and stuff. And it's kind of like, it's so not like that in most other poker. And it's hard for me to play poker outside of Vegas, especially in like LA, because like you said, like you just feel like you're taking people's rent money. You're taking their, and I kind of hate that aspect of like, especially, and even in like the kind of sometimes the big nosebleed cash games, like there's usually a couple of fish and everyone's just, jumping on them. And you kind of just feel like, I don't know, there's like this kind of shitty atmosphere where you have to like recruit people.
Yeah, it's like predatory, right?
It is. And
it's really predatory. And there's like this like degenerate component to it too often. Yeah, and also like if you think about it, like I think in all of the times that I've played at a Triton stop, I can literally think of 0 times where someone just like spazzed out at a dealer.
Oh God,
That's
yeah.
like another, like it just like doesn't happen. That's not the environment that you're in. But if you look at like a 2-5 game in any casino, like every hour, you know, someone just like throws their cards at the dealer or just like makes some snarky remark or just like spazzes out. And yeah, that's a lot harder to deal with for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. When I play live cash, I'm in 2-5 and 5-10, and I just noticed that I play a lot less than I used to because I'd rather play online. I'll just play MTTs, and I'd rather play. Even live tournaments don't ever get as depressing as live cash at mid stakes gets, because live tournaments, like, you know, when you're buying into a 1K, your chances are slim. There's tons of runners, and it's not till the end that you really can see like, oh, this could be life changing or whatever. So you don't have people with like tension super high in that. But when people are playing with money they shouldn't be playing with, it's just a super depressing game. And like, I've definitely witnessed that, and I don't like that aspect of the game. And I think that that's what led me to want to play online more, because I feel like, I don't know, it's not as in your face. Like, there's going to be people who are playing with money they shouldn't be playing with online, but it's anonymous, you don't know. And I don't know, I guess just not being confronted with it is one way you don't have to really think about it. I don't know. Speaking of online, I wanted to ask about WSOP. So pretty much everyone's talking about it right now. The fact that there's going to be bracelets online. Obviously there have been in the past as well, but now it's going to be a ton of them, like 85 or something like that, for just 2 states, and then excluding the US on GG. And I want to know what your thoughts on that are, if you care about the prestige of bracelets and about the brand of WSOP, and if you think that this harms them at all.
It's not something that I've given much thought to. I don't see. So how many bracelet events are there usually?
That's like, a good question.
Is it like a lot more? Like 85 doesn't seem like that many, and there's not a lot of this.
Is it 85 total, or is it 85? I can look it up right now on one of the sites. I think it was less having to do with the number of bracelets they're giving, but more to do with the fact that these aren't being played out live. People have all these concerns about, like, especially rec players have a lot of concerns about how online poker runs, and if there are teams playing, if there's cheating, if there's people using solvers in real time, things like that. And like, I don't know. I think that was more what I was going for. Not that they're diluting their brand with like 500 bracelets or something like that, but more that it's just such a different animal than playing live tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. So I think the concerns that, I think the concerns that you stated, they're certainly valid, but I don't think that they necessarily dilute the prestige of a bracelet. I don't know. If anything, like there's like these like Raz events or whatever, a bunch of like other games that get like very small fields, and like how prestigious is it winning a bracelet that's like kind of worth the same, but like not really at one of those, right? So I don't think I think all of the online events, they're going to be big field events. They're going to be tough. So winning a bracelet's not going to be any less prestigious. Are there always going to be issues with like all of the ethical and so on issues that you stated online? For sure, yeah. But I also feel that larger fields sort of mitigate that.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, because so many of our viewers, are recreational or play low stakes, how would you go about starting out today if you're going to play low stakes or try to get good at poker?
Ooh. So it would be easier to answer if you gave me like at least a rough number or like a rough amount of money that I would be starting with. Like, it's different if you're starting with like $20, right? It's also it's not impossible, but yeah, you could play free rolls, but then the path is a little different.
Say like an average 1-2 reg with like $2,000 to $3,000, and like even maybe has like a job or something, but kind of wants to get better and start playing bigger.
How would I go about getting better? So what I would probably do is I would focus on playing tournaments on like Sundays and whatever the other big day is on the site that they play, probably Tuesday or Thursday. If they're looking to improve, I've always strongly recommended playing sit and goes just to get better at ICM spots. I think it's something that seasoned tournament players have, especially people that play smaller fields now, they've just have so much ICM experience. But if you are someone that just plays like these huge $100 buy-in tournaments, most of your EV and a lot of the mistakes that are costly, they're going to come from some final table situations where that might come up like once a month or something. So like you're not going to get better at those spots unless you put yourself into those spots, but you can't put yourself into those spots until you final table something. So the way you kind of address that is, I think, by playing a different format, which would be sit and goes. And yeah, if you're a recreational player, I would recommend going the tournament route for sure. At least, first of all, I just think it's more fun. I also think it's where poker is going in general. I also think that the fact that cash games still mostly run with no antes make it bad for kind of like game integrity reasons, potential botting, etc. So I would say stay away from cash, focus on tournaments, practice ICM spots by playing low stakes sit and goes, and study more than you play.
Interesting. Interested in a few things you said. Interesting you said tournaments, because a lot of people would say no just because the variance is so high. I mean, I'm a cash game player too. I'm just recently getting into tournaments, and I've found that I'm so happy that I had cash because I feel like, I don't know, it just kind of gives you a good groundwork of fundamentals, and I don't know, less pain, I guess, in the beginning of just these massive swings. Why do you say tournaments other than the ante structure?
So I think that with tournaments, they're swingy because people are used to thinking about swings in terms of buy-ins. But I don't think that that's the right way to think about the swings in tournaments. I mean, it's obviously one way to think about tournaments, but generally I would say that people think about swings in terms of buy-ins, and generally people think that tournaments are too swingy because they're probably playing buy-ins that they shouldn't be playing. So for example, if you're playing, I guess it would be useful to convert kind of the levels that you play in a tournament to the equivalent of like a cash game level and see how often you play those levels to actually get like a better intuitive grasp of what the swings are. So let's say you're playing a $100 tournament and you start with 100 big blinds. You're essentially, for the first level, you're playing 50 cents a dollar, right? And then half an hour later, you're playing 1-2. And then an hour later, you're playing 2-4 short stacked. And then if you're still in 3 hours later, you're playing like 10-20. So if you're kind of looking at how often you're playing those different stakes, if you're looking at playing a $100 tournament as you actually playing like 10-20, 5 to 10% of the time, then the swings aren't actually that big. They're just big because people are just like, well, it's a $100 tournament, but people say I need 150 buy-ins for my role to even play this thing. What the hell? Well, it's like, yeah, it's because 2 hours in, you're playing like 5-10. So, of course you need like 20K or whatever to play this tournament. So, I think that when people say tournaments are swingy, like, yes, the variance in tournaments is more, and that's due to you essentially playing different stakes, but the variance within those stakes isn't itself bigger. Also, did I lose both of you?
No, I think that's like a very interesting way of looking at it. I also hadn't been told to practice sit and goes for ICM, so that's kind of cool. Like, people I've talked to just said, make sure you're grinding a ton of volume so you find yourself at some final tables online, even if they're just $50, $100 tournaments. Because then when you get to like a live tournament final table where there's tons of money on the line, you get practice. But sit and goes are definitely that makes a lot of sense. One other thing I wanted to point out, though, when you're talking about high variance, I'm like, hey, when I'm new at poker and I suck, bring on the variance, please. Like, I don't want to sit in a cash game with 200 big blinds with no variance where I'm losing.
well, like that's the thing.
That's a good point.
Like, I feel that if you're a recreational player, you for sure have a way better chance in a tournament than you do in a cash game.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like essentially until you get to spots where there's ICM, and that's obviously like a whole different thing. But anytime you're in a tournament, like the money that you're playing for can pretty easily be converted to like equivalent stakes cash game with, like weird stacks, which tend to be shorter. So if you're a recreational player, like, yeah, you'd rather be sitting 20, 30 blinds deep with an ante in there and like kind of like sticking it in with equity rather than sitting 100 big blinds deep all day against wizards just like that are grinding away at you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like think about if you would rather buy like a recreational players who is minus EV, if you would rather buy his action in a cash game or a tournament. Like obviously you take the action in a tournament, right? Like
For sure.
even if someone's like, yeah, I'm a minus 20% ROI player, it's like, okay, well, you might still win. But if you're losing like 20 BB per 100 in a cash game, you're just never going to have like more than one winning session.
Mm-hmm. Also in tournaments, I've been in that spot before where I just feel like I'm one of the worst people at the table. Like it'll be day one, like the main event's a good example. Day one and day two, I'm avoiding flips because my table is great and I don't want to take on that much risk when I feel like I could slowly and I could chill more and get a stack. Day three, I was at a table where I was the only person with no, it was like basically Germany at this table. And I'm like, then I'm just like, please give me a flip. Like, give me an opportunity to get in a flip with a little bit of dead money and I'll take it. And I think that kind of thing for a recreational player, if they can even realize that they might be closer to even in a tournament. If they can sit at a table and be like, oh, I'm getting wrecked at this table. Like, let's increase the variance and like, let's get some chips in. They might actually do fine with like an even lower skill level and not knowing what to do post-flop. It's like, all right, maximize your variance pre, you might end up getting a stack.
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, especially kind of people that, recreational players or even weaker regs, is when they get to a spot where they feel outclassed, they freeze up. Like they're just like, ooh, tough table. Like I'm going to play conservatively. It's like, no, if you're at a tough table, then instead of like, if you know that sometimes you're supposed to flat a hand and sometimes you're supposed to 3-bet a hand, unless you're going to get off of that table soon, just 3-bet more often, get a lower stack to pot ratio, try to flop a pair and get it in. Like, don't let them grind away at you playing like these small pots.
So true. But it just to, keep on the topic, saying that, you have a bigger edge as a recreational in a tournament, then wouldn't you say that cash games are tougher? Or like, I know there's different skills for each, but like, I don't know, like, because cash games are so much harder to be in a consistent basis, I feel like, I don't know, but I'm biased. I'm just very
so how do you mean like cash games are tougher
in the sense of like, or not just tougher, but like, because like you said, if a recreational, like it's harder for them to win consistently, wouldn't that mean that they're tougher overall? Or I don't know.
Cash games?
Yeah.
I would say so.
But I feel like there's just different skills in tournaments, especially the deeper you get, probably.
There's different skills. Also, I think that cash games, they favor people that are really good at precision, because like, you're always playing one stack depth. There's really not that much variety in terms of the situations you're in. You could probably like write down on a small notepad like all of the common spots. that happen in cash games. Like there's not that many. It's all the positions that an open is from versus like a big blind flat. Sometimes the button will call, like sometimes the small blind will call. But like most of the hands that go post flop, it's just button, cutoff, hijack, low jack versus big blind. So unless you know how to play those spots precisely, long term, you're kind of going to get crushed.
Right.
But I feel like for tournaments, when there's so much variety in terms of the spots that you're in, if you're kind of winging it, you kind of have and you have like an intuitive grasp of different situations, you might have a better shot.
I just can't, I'm just trying to figure out why I can't seem to cash one. But I'm just going to keep plugging away. One of these days.
Yeah, they're brutal. Tournaments are super brutal, but also they are fun. Like I'm definitely still in love with poker. When I realize that I've like cleared my whole July, I'm like, okay, there's bracelet events online. I'm one of the fish that's like, I don't know. I'm happy we're having them. I know that the rake is too high. I know that, I understand people are saying that, it hurts the brand and whatever, but I'm just happy to have something to do. I've been staying at home. I'm like excited. I've been studying a lot and I just feel like playing. So whatever WSP is doing, they have me for life. So
yeah, it should be a fun July and August for sure.
One more, I was going to ask, are you planning any trips for like after WSP is over? If you're going super hard at the WSP or the GG schedule, do you have like a big retreat planned after?
I have nothing planned right now. I think it's just, I'm not going to plan anything because it's just, who knows what's going to happen. And also, I would imagine that like mid-August, some sites are like, hey, W Coop time. Like it's just like one thing after another, right? So who knows what the scheduling will be like? Who knows if we'll even have an opportunity to go somewhere after August? I'm not overly optimistic, so no plans yet.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We'll let you go, but yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much. It was cool hearing about your adventures. If you have any more fun adventures, maybe when we're allowed to do stuff again and have friends again, and you come to WSOP, we could take a Vegas adventure, because I've been exploring a little bit. There's some cool shit out here that people don't really do when they come here to play poker.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Like people just don't have the association with Vegas, but it's actually pretty sweet.
Yeah. So someday.
I'm guessing neither of you venture up this way all that often?
I don't venture anywhere. I don't venture out of my house right now, but eventually I would like to.
No, in general.
I have plans to go. I did the whole Pacific Rim and took some. That was awesome. If you haven't done that yet, just went to the Redwood Forest and stuff. And I have plans to go to Vancouver and stuff like that eventually, but not quite to your area. It's far, far away from me.
Yeah, Banff is really nice too. So yeah, if you're up in Vancouver, it's relatively close.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We thought about coming up there. If we can't stay in the UK, we might go to Canada or something if we can to hang out and explore the scenery a bit. So maybe we'll go to Toronto. Not sure.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, we have some friends there, so it'd be fun.
Is that a bottle of Smirnoff, by the way, right by the flowers? Nice. Yeah. Nice.
All class.
Awesome.
Yep. On that note, we'll end here and see you next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah.